Thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar at Wageloch. My name is Kiralee, I'm the Relationship Manager, and we've got Sienna here who is our Training Specialist. We are covering a couple of topics. So first of all, we'll be covering the new onboarding feature, and then Sienna will move on to other new features such as our shift swap, roster acceptance, late clocking alerts, staff notes when clocking, and our boot report, which stands for Better Off Overall Test Report. So if I can just get everyone to write any questions that you've got down in the chat box, and then what we'll do is that the training session will go for 45 minutes, and at the end of it, we'll have about 15 minutes of Q&A. So we'll go through and read all the questions in the chat box and answer them one by one that way. So I'll hand you over to Sienna for the training session.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kiralee. All right, let's get to screen sharing and let's get into it. So some of you may have spoken with me before, some of you may have not, but I'm Sienna, I'm the training specialist here at Wageloch. More often than not, you may have had an email from me giving you some instructions on how to help yourself throughout the system. So we are, as Kiralee said, we are going to be covering a few topics today. One of the big ones is onboarding. Now, this one is a fairly new system that we brought in to help with our clients bringing in new staff. Just helps them get them into the system a little bit quicker, and you can have all of their pay information sent directly to your payroll, or at least generate a document for the majority of it. From there, we're going to then tackle multi-factor authentication, which is also part of that onboarding. We'll be talking about late clocking notifications, which is a fairly new feature as well. Also very, very useful, letting you know the staff haven't clocked in or clocked out. Some staff notes, and yeah, there's a few things we're going to cover today. So the first thing we are going to go through, as mentioned, is onboarding. Now, the one thing I do need to let everyone know, if we have any of our New Zealand fans here today, it's actually not available in New Zealand at the moment. So you're welcome to still tag along, see if it could be of any use for you in the future, and just get an idea of some of the things that we have. So some of the basic sort of prerequisites or requirements for onboarding. So firstly, it is not currently available in New Zealand. You must be on what is our API server, and using the web versions. So one of the main things is we do have some of our clients that may have been with us for a little bit longer. We'd like to get you onto our new server if we can. It opens up a lot of these features and functionalities. So if you're not yet with us on the new server, you haven't heard of a migration just yet, please feel free to get in touch with our help desk and we'll guide you through that process to get you moved over. Very, very useful, bunch of new features, absolutely love it, highly recommend. Another prerequisite is multi-factor authentication, or MFA, must be enabled. You're not able to deal with this level of personal information without it. I'll be briefly covering over what that does. A lot of it is actually done on your mobile phone to enable that tool, but most of you would likely be familiar with it for one reason or another, where you get prompted for a 6-digit code when you're logging into a specific system or program. One really useful part of this onboarding is the data from this onboarding, so their personal information, address, TFN, bank information, super details. This is actually all sent to MyOb, Xero, and Reckon One automatically, so it pre-fills that information for you in your payroll system. It is also available to Reckon hosted, but it does provide limited information. So I believe it just does the name, the base rate, date of birth, and the start date. And I've had recent word it actually brings through the address as well. So very limited information, but it can help you pre-populate. The data, very, very important. The data is secured, encrypted, and meets ISO certifications for 27001 and 9001, and also the ATO certifications as well, to make sure that we're handling this information correctly, securely, and keeping it all safe. At this current point in time, the onboarding form cannot be customized, so it is very straightforward and generic, but we will have the ability to customize it with our HR add-on, which will hopefully be coming in the new year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. No doubt we'll have more information as it arises and once it becomes available. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you how we enable onboarding for use. Okay, let me just enable. Okay, so hopefully you can see all of that. Wonderful. So what we'll basically be working through is how to enable it, how to set it up, and how it actually works. So we're actually going to go through the live process of what yourselves would do as managers, and we're also going to go through what the staff member would see as well. So we're going to get both views of it. The one part I obviously cannot do is the export into a payroll system to show you how that side of things behave. But again, it is very easy and straightforward. Okay, so to start with, enabling onboarding, unbelievably easy. So you log into Wageloch. Again, you must be using the web version. This won't be visible in the desktop version if you are running that version. So we click on the settings cog up the top here, and we go into the general area. Okay. From here, we have onboard new employees by default. We tick that option on. When a staff member has received their onboarding email and they have completed their onboarding and submitted it back to you, this option here to onboard onboarding admin email address, you can pop multiple email addresses in there, and as soon as the staff member has finished their onboarding documentation, you'll receive an email to say, yep, this is done. Usually quite good to do that, just in case you want to know when something's happened. So we tick the onboard new employees by default, pop in an email address, we hit done. Okay, information updated. So that's step number one. Step number two is we've got to enable our multi-factor authentication. So we can enable that onboarding. By all means, we can do that. Anything subsequent to that, anything after that, we actually won't be able to get visibility to if we don't have multi-factor set up. So the easiest way to set this up, and there are a couple, but we're going to go through the easiest one. When you're logged into Wageloch, you go to the little icon up the top here, usually has your initial in there. And we go to manage your Wageloch user account. From there, we're going to have a small little toggle. I'm just going to wait for my internet to kick in apparently. All right. So we have this little toggle here under security for multi-factor authentication. You can see it's turned off at the moment. This is where I get my handy dandy phone and get my authenticator app up. Now, there are quite a few to use. I personally use a combination of 3, believe it or not. I have the Microsoft Authenticator I use for my emails. I have the Google Authenticator I pretty much use for everything. You also have Authy as well, which is a lesser known one, but it is available. So yeah, you do have quite a few out there. Use whichever one you use for everything else. Keep it all in one spot. So in this case, I am going to open up my Authenticator on my app, and I'm going to add a new account. And you'll have an option to scan a QR code on there. Now, I can't show you my screen, unfortunately, because obviously it is security codes. We did test this. So I'm just having to give you an idea of what's going on. So I'm going to tap the option to scan a QR code on my phone. And then on the screen in front of me, I'm going to turn the multi-factor authentication on. This will generate a QR code for me. So from there, I grab my handy dandy phone, I scan that QR code. All right, it will usually default it and give it a name that just says Wageloch. Okay, so to verify that multi-factor is being turned on, it'll now give me a 6-digit code in my app, and you can see I've got a 6-digit option on my screen here. Now that has just refreshed for me, so now I'm going to type in my code. All right, and obviously you can trust it for 30 days if you wish, but my multi-factor is now on and I can now start my onboarding process. So we just click done to save. And that is the 2 enabling functions done. So we turned it on to start with. We gave ourselves an email to make sure that we get the notifications when staff finish their onboarding. And we turned on multi-factor authentication to ensure that the data is safe. Okay, now from here, we're going to send, create a new employee in the system, and we're going to send their onboarding email. So Easiest way to do that. Now you can also create new staff, or you can onboard existing staff if you wish, but in this case, we're going to add a new staff member. So to do that, we go into the staff list up the top here. Okay. We go create, top right. Okay. Now the absolute base information that we need here is first name, surname, email address. That's all we need in here to get this working. So in this case, we're going to go to my good old trusty Jim Bob. So first name Jim, last name Bob, email address. I'm actually going to be a little bit sneaky and put in my work email address. Whoops, helps if I type correctly. Okay, beautiful. So we type in our email address. So first name, surname, email address. Now we've got two options here as well. So export to payroll when saved. So if you are using things such as Mail, 0, Reckon 1, what that option will do is actually directly export as soon as it's finished. It'll actually put it straight into your payroll system. If you choose not to use that, perfectly fine. You just make sure that you're sending the onboarding link and we click done. Okay, an onboarding link has been sent to Jim Bob. All right, so that is from the management side of things, that's your part done to start with. Okay, so that is the really, really easy part. And now, hopefully when my email comes through, which it will, and I'm going to move my emails over here. Now we're going to see the staff side of things. Okay, so we can see I have an email here for myself, Jim Bob. Now we found the other day that if you're using an online version of Outlook, you get little bits of confetti. But it says, Jim Bob, congratulations on your employment with the mobile app demo. We're currently in the process of setting your employee file. Please click here. Now you do have the button or the link, either or. But this 6-digit code here is also really important for the employee. Again, multi-factor authentication keeps it all secure. So we're going to need that. So if I click on the link or click set up employee file, okay, move this window over here, and you can see it's asking me for my 6-digit code. So I should be able to grab that 865991. So 865991. And this is exactly what your staff are going to be seeing. Okay. So we have the request for personal information. Now they can update this information if it's incorrect. So if Jim is actually James and Bob is actually Roberts, they could go through and update that information. They can input all of their details here. Okay. Got bank information, pretty straightforward. Okay. The more bank accounts you add, however, they can actually split the percentage of, or the dollar value of how much goes where, which is also really, really cool. So they can pick between a percentage or a dollar value. So if they want some to go into a savings account, and most to go into their normal account, fantastic, they can do that. Super fund details. Okay, so most often than not, it's going to be an APRA fund. And from there, they can actually use the search function to find that information. You've got the TFN declaration, pretty standard stuff, same stuff that you get on the form that you would normally give them. And you've also got their emergency contact information. Now, the absolutely lovely thing about this as well is that if the staff member is trying to fill this out, they can fill it out in any order that they wish. So they can start with the emergency contacts and personal information, do it one or the other. That, as you can see, I've been able to click around with no problems. It doesn't stop me going, no, you need to fill this out first. I can go through and fill this out in whatever order I want. If I'm not finished with it yet and I go, oh, I need to get that information, I can't find it, I can actually click save and edit later and then come back and fill this out again if I need to. But generally speaking, we fill out all the information. Jim Bob's got our information all filled out. We hit finish, and that will send an email back through to you as a manager going, hey, by the way, Jim Bob has finished his onboarding form. If we have ticked that save and export to payroll, that would automatically export that data for us. Or you can come back into Wageloch and you can actually download that data to then use in your payroll system. So you don't have to be using MyOb or 0 or Reckon 1. You can use any payroll system. just knows that some do not do the direct export, and the other ones will just generate a document for you to be able to input that data yourselves. Okay. But that is it for onboarding. So it's a pretty easy setup and pretty easy for the staff as well, which is really, really important. One thing I will also show you as well why we are here. So that was your employee onboarding, but what if we have an existing staff member that we want to onboard? We can still do that, as I mentioned before. So you go into an existing card and you do have an option here to send an onboarding link. So if they want to update any of their details that we have on the staff card, their emergency contact, bank details, whatever they want to update, we can resend them an onboarding link to fill out, and then it'll come back through to us as well. Excellent. That is pretty much it, again, pretty much it for onboarding now that I've shown you that. I will take a couple of moments. If anyone has any questions about onboarding, please pop them in chat. We will be doing a Q&A in the last 15 minutes of the session, but you're welcome to pop details in there if you wish. Just gonna have a cheeky sip of my beverage. But the next thing we're going to be going through is shift swapping. Excellent. All right. Shift swaps. Let's go. So again, we have prerequisites. We do have prerequisites for your shift swaps as well. So one is that your mobile app for roster viewing. So if you're using the mobile app, you must have roster viewing enabled. If staff cannot view their roster, they cannot facilitate shift swaps. Okay. We also need to enable the shift swapping as well, which we're going to be going through. We also need to ensure that the roster is published. So kind of three really important things. Are they using the mobile phone? One. Two, are we sending out the rosters to the mobile phone? And have we actually enabled the tool? Okay. So we'll be going through what you will be doing as a manager. It also involves the mobile app. So for shift swaps, there needs to be an administrator for the Wageloch mobile app. That will give you the ability to actually facilitate and approve and decline those shift swaps as they come through. So to start with, we're going to make sure, one, we have a roster published, which we do. All right. And number two, we're going to check our app settings and make sure we have that set up to actually view rosters. Okay. So if we click on the settings cog up the top here, we're going to go down to portal and mobile app settings, and we go through the portal setup. Now, if some of you have been with us for quite some time and you're not actually aware of the capabilities of the Wageloch mobile app, there are options such as being able for staff to view their rosters. They can apply for leave. They can also submit availability as well. And you can choose any combination of those three of what they can see and do in the app. They can also mobile clock in and clock out, which is an optional feature, and you pick and choose who receives it and when. But in this case, we're going to go into the portal setup. And firstly, we're going to check who is an administrator. So we go into the security option. We consider currently 4 administrative users in the system. If I click on yes, I will be able to see who is currently set up. It's me. I'm Amy. So we can see there that we've got four users that are administrators. So all 4 of these people would have the ability to facilitate shift swaps on the mobile phone and update the rosters accordingly. So that would be another first step. From there, we have the mobile app tab. So if you haven't been through this setup before, by all means, go step by step. We're going to skip straight to the mobile app. And we have this option just here, which is for shift swaps. So you would want to allow shift swap requests from staff. Okay. So we tick that option on. Pop in the email address of who you would like to receive these notifications when they come through. So I've sent them to myself. Now, for those that are using the mobile phone app, again, if you're an administrator, you can also receive a push notification on your mobile phone to say, hey, you've received a notification of a shift swap. I'm choosing not to do that. But this one here, that when any swaps are approved, update and publish roster with changes, really important because this saves you time. If you tick that option and you're in the phone, you get a shift swap and you approve it, what it does is immediately change whatever's in the roster. From there, it'll go, oh, there's changes to this roster. We need to publish this out again. And it does it automatically for you. And it notifies the staff members that their rosters have changed. Now we'll be coming back to this clock time alerts function, but for the moment, we have 2 tick boxes. We can email it fields if we want, or we just have to check our phone. So I always recommend emails. We can go through the remainder of the setup, but in this case, we would hit save information to update the option for shift swaps. Okay. So now that we have that enabled and we've published a roster out, this is where shift swaps can now be started by staff through their mobile phone app. So, for example, this is Amy's phone. Now, for a normal staff member that is not an administrator, they would only have the option here to see my roster and probably leave and availability. So just 3 of these. Okay. Now, as a manager, you also would get these 3 options. So full roster, shift swap, and message center. So your normal staff member will receive 3 buttons at a bare minimum. A manager would have 6. Okay. But in this case, we're going to go into my roster. So I'm Amy. I'm going to check my roster. And here we go. These are some shifts. Now, this is obviously a day that I don't normally work, and I want to swap this shift. I am not okay with this one. You can see we've got a little arrow here. This is for me as a staff member to go, excuse me, manager, I can't do this shift. Could you please change it for me and find someone else to do it? So I can click that little arrow. It says, are you sure you wish to swap your shift for the 18th of December, 8 a.m. till 12 p.m.? And I go, yes. So if I were Jim Bob, I've sent that through and I can now see we're pending approval, and I can cancel that if it's pending. If it's being actioned, only the administrator can then do it, or the manager can do it. So Jim Bob has sent through a request to swap that shift. Okay. Now, if we give this a moment on this shift swaps as now Amy, who's the manager, I can see that I've received an email notification saying, hey, Jim Bob has requested a shift swap. Okay. I would then come into my shift swap area. Now this says Amy Adams. We're going to just pretend this is Jim Bob. So we'll say Jim Bob has requested a shift swap on the 18th for an 8 till 12 shift. If I decline the request, it will notify the staff member that their request for a shift swap has been declined. If I accept the offer, however, what it will give me is the option to pick and choose. I'm going to ignore Jim Bob. Jim Bob's not there. But it's going to allow me to pick and choose who I want to offer that shift to. Okay. Now, the wonderful part is as well, you can see if they've been rostered on for the day. You can also see how many hours they have for the current roster period and how many shifts they have as well. So, if you saw someone there with like 56 or, 72 hours, you might be like, maybe I don't want to do that for that fortnight. But in this case, we're going to pick and choose a few people for who we think might want to do this shift. You can also select all if you wish. You can also search for particular employees. And we go send request. Now, what will happen is we'll get a little notification saying shift swap initiated successfully. 4 staff members will be notified, and you will be notified when the staff members respond. So those staff will now get notification on their phone going, hey, by the way, you've been offered a shift on this day at this time. They can either accept or, again, decline. Now, if they accept, we will see an option here to say 1 staff member responded, 2 staff members responded. And if I click on this, it would show who has said, yes, I'll do this. And then this would usually say accept. So you'd have an option to pick 1 person and then go to submit the shift swap. From there, once that is done, it'll then immediately update your roster and republish it out and let the people whose shifts have changed know that they have fresh shifts available and they have a fresh roster. Just that easy. So as long as, again, mobile app is being used for viewing of rosters, a roster has been published, shift swaps have been enabled, and you have someone who is both responsible for rostering and an administrator in the mobile app as well. From there, they can request shift swaps, they can approve and decline shift swaps. And that is mostly it for shift swaps. One thing, oh no, I'm reading my wrong notes, so no, that's going to be the next point we touch on. But yeah, that is it for shift swaps. So I will leave it for the moment. Give everyone a breather if they need to take care of anything. I'm going to have a sip of my beverage, and we'll continue on to roster shift confirmation, which is a fairly new one as well. For anyone who is curious as well, we are in the process of trying to decide what is being done with these videos as well. We are wanting to make them available for those people who were not able to make these seminars today, or webinars, I should say. So for those who weren't able to come today, or who had to leave partway through, we will eventually make these available for viewing. So we'll keep your eyes out. We'll let you know once they are ready to view. Okay. So let's talk roster shift confirmation. Next one. So this is very similar to the shift swapping option. So again, the mobile app must be made available for staff to view their rosters. We must also have a roster published. Okay, that's usually part of the process as well. And we also need to enable the option for roster shift confirmation. Okay, so firstly, so mobile app for roster viewing must be disabled. We already have that set up as we went through it in the last shift swap section. Now we're going to enable roster shift confirmation. So we go into the settings area at the top here. If we go through rosters, and if we go through roster shift confirmation, okay. So we can firstly enable alerts on the mobile app. So this will make staff be notified. They'll receive a push notification on their phone to say, hey, you have received a new roster. Okay. Include first publish as a change. This will notify the staff member upon the first publish of the roster. Hey, by the way, here's your first roster. Do you want to accept or decline your shifts? You must require a confirmation as well. Okay. You can also pick and choose which pay groups you'd like to use this particular accept or decline of the roster for. So if you go, okay, I really don't care too much about my full-timers, they work most days of the week, but maybe I want to make sure that the casuals and part-timers whose days and hours could flex and change, I would like to ensure that they get notified and they let me know whether they can or can't. So you can pick and choose, or you can select all. You can put a custom footer on that notification as well, going, hey, please check your roster, let me know if there's any issues. Okay. And I do find that this one is kind of crucial as well. So if shifts are declined, notify employer. Now, realistically, if your staff are declining their shifts, you probably would want to be notified of that, to be like, hey, by the way, they've said no. Right, I need to have a bit of a chat with them. So tick the option for if shifts are declined, notify employer. You can do, again, two things. One, pop in email or multiple emails. You can also go to push notifications if you're a manager that has access to the mobile phone app. You can also use department level emails. So if you have a management team to go, right, we've got James, he deals with this area. We have Mary, she deals with this area, and those staff, they take care of their teams. You can actually enable it so those particular managers receive the notifications that the rosters have been declined. And what this does, so long story short, staff member, roster gets published, they receive a notification going, do you wish to approve or decline these shifts? If they approve or they just do nothing with it, the assumption is that they're working. It's pretty straightforward. Now, if they decline their shifts, the manager will be notified, hey, by the way, Jim Bob has declined their shifts for the pay cycle. And then the shifts will still remain in the roster exactly as they were. They won't remove, they won't switch to being an available shift ready to assign. It leaves them exactly as they are. The reason for that is that if there was any automation, okay, you know, you had those shifts in there and then someone declines them, it just deletes them. Obviously, you're going to go, well, where are those shifts? I need those covered. And you've got to go back in and add them again. So we leave those shifts in there so you can then have a discussion with that staff member going, okay, why can't you do these shifts? Have a bit of a chat, work it out, and then you can manually intervene and change the roster from there. So realistically, the approval or declining, apart from just giving you a notification that they've said, yes, I can do this or no, I can't, okay, is just to make sure that they're okay with their shifts. So again, totally optional. Do not have to use it if you don't want to. Okay. But that is as much as we have for the roster shift confirmation. We're going to be talking about late clocking alerts next. Thankfully, that's a really easy one. And I have so many emails to show you about that because I've had it set up for the last week and it's been spamming my folder in my email. So if anyone has any questions in chat about shift swaps or roster confirmation, please go ahead, pop them in, take a 30-second sip of my beverage, probably not even that, and we'll talk about late clocking alerts. Thankfully, we actually don't have too much more to cover off. It's late clocking alert, staff notes for clocking, and the boot report. And that is it. And then we'll have our Q&A. So again, if you do have any questions, pop them in chat, or if you would rather not, you also have the option to just give our help desk a call. So you can reach out on 08 7123 2993, or you can give us an email at by emailing helpdesk@wageloch.com.au. I've apparently forgotten how to talk today. Excellent. All right, let's talk late clocking alerts. So this was brought into the system for a few reasons. One of the main ones is we had a client who had staff that worked out in paddocks or fields, rode 4x4s, working with trucks and animals, that sort of thing. And they asked if they could have a reminder if someone hadn't clocked out for their scheduled shift. And the reason why is that if they were working on their own and they were on a quad bike and something happened to them and they hadn't clocked out, no one is going to know until they don't rock up the next day. This is why one of the reasons this was introduced. We did have a very similar tool available in Time Kiosk, but this one covers everyone and everything. Now, again, as we've gone through with the other options as well, the new features, there are some prerequisites. Okay. One of the main ones at the moment is that there must be a roster in the system. If there is not a roster in the system, currently the clock time alerts have no guide from where to work from. So, okay, if you're late for your shift, what shift are you late for? What time does it start and finish? Okay. So it only works based on roster shifts. Even, for example, is that if you mostly base your timesheets on clock times, which is fine, you can still put like a standard rostered shift in. You know, we can make templates with you, or you can just copy roster to roster to roster as a vague idea of, you know, what they would normally do. And then you can enable these clock time alerts to roughly base off of that. Now, obviously, it may not be entirely accurate, but it can give staff reminders and management reminders as well to be like, hey, by the way, you haven't clocked out. And that's the best part, it does both. So the way that we enable this, and we saw it before when we were doing the shift swaps. So if we go up to the settings cog here, and if we go down to our portal and mobile app settings, we go into the portal setup. Okay. Now, again, if you haven't been through if you weren't aware that the mobile app exists, definitely take your time, go through each option. In this case, we are going to skip straight to the mobile app. Okay, now I can confirm as well, these late clocking notifications will actually work both for if you're using Time Kiosk on a computer, Time Kiosk on a tablet, or mobile app clocking for staff. It works with all three. I can attest to that because I've been getting emails all week. So as long as someone clocks in between their designated time, you won't receive a notification, which is the best part. So under the mobile app settings here, we have clock time alerts. So we need to firstly enable them. Now you do have the option of just to do a clock in check or a clock out check, or both. You can do either or. So I want to be notified if a staff member has not clocked in within, let's say, 10 minutes. They haven't started within 10 minutes of their shift. You can type in 10. You can also use little arrows. And maybe I don't want to be notified if they haven't clocked out at their scheduled end of shift. That could simply be because, okay, maybe they were scheduled to finish at 5 p.m, but they had to stay back, but it was authorized. You don't really want to have a notification go through going, hey, you haven't clocked out when you're there with them. That is completely optional. But I want to be notified within 10 minutes of their start time if they haven't clocked in. And maybe I want to be notified within, let's say, 30 minutes of their rostered finish time if they haven't clocked out. Now, as you can see here, I have my email address in here to email me any notifications if staff members have not clocked in or out on time. You can also send push notifications to your mobile phone if you really feel like it. But this one is really useful as well, send push notification to employee. Now, this again requires, with the welcome notifications, if you would like staff to receive a notification on their mobile phone, you've got to make sure that the portal and app are set up and ready to go. Otherwise, no one will get this notification. You'll just get emails. Okay, but you would go through, pick which of these options you wish. Again, we go to the last and we save the information to formally activate and enable that. Now from there, so let's say, for example, we'll look at Jim Bob again. So Jim Bob scheduled to start at 8 a.m. Okay, we've got our tolerance set to 10 minutes. If Jim Bob does not clock in by 8:10 a.m., we will receive an email notification going, hey, Jim Bob hasn't clocked in. Okay, and then we get the same for out. So if he was scheduled to finish at 4:30 p.m. and he had not clocked out by 5 p.m., same thing. We will receive a notification going, hey, by the way, Jim Bob hasn't clocked out by 5 p.m. And how that works, if we do the email notifications, I'm going to pull up my email and I'll show you. You can see here, I have a bunch of emails saying late, clock in and clock out. So it lets you know whether they have or they haven't done it yet. Okay, so if we go, oh, you know, they haven't clocked out, it's 5 p.m. I could give them a call. If I'm not there, I can go, oh, hey, by the way, you haven't clocked out for your shift. Oh, yeah, I'm still working. Okay, cool, not a problem. Okay, now, again, this is totally optional. And you can see I've got everything going into my deleted items folder. So if you do choose to enable this function, I do strongly recommend not sending it to your junk or deleted folder. What I do suggest is to create a subfolder in your inbox and set up a rule to have anything that comes from no reply at Wageloch to flow straight into that folder so you can check it, but it's not going to overwhelm your inbox. Okay, because otherwise, if I scroll down, you'll see I've actually cleaned up my inbox. There was a lot there. Well, I've got 392 emails to recover, so you can probably imagine how many I had. But yeah, that is pretty much it for late clocking alerts. It is really simple and straightforward. You can opt in for email notifications and or mobile app. You can also choose if staff get a notification as well. I'll probably say if you don't want them to be on their phone at work, it may be best to have the mobile app notifications for them off. But again, that is completely up to you. Okay, so we've got two more things to go through before we go and address the questions in chat. So we're going to talk about staff notes on clocking. I'm just going to jump straight into that one. Okay, so with staff notes on clocking, there are a couple really useful reasons for this. One is that if you are not there all the time, and maybe people have had to stay back for whatever reason, is maybe you want them to leave notes for you to say, hey, you know, why did you stay back? Stayed back because reasons. So you can actually, they can actually leave notes for you. And that is available on the Wageloch Time kiosk. So whether that's through a computer or a tablet, it's also enabled through the Wageloch mobile app as well. So pretty much wherever someone clocks in and clocks out, we can allow them to leave notes for you. And they kind of work in different ways. So to enable the notes through the tablet or time kiosk, just another tick box. So we go to the settings cog up the top here. We go into general. And there's an option down the bottom here to allow staff to enter notes when clocking on. Pretty straightforward, really, really easy. And we go done. And that's enabled at least on the time kiosk. Now for the mobile app side of things, if you would like staff to leave notes when they're clocking in and clocking out on their mobile phone, little bit of a different setting. That one again will be through settings, portal and mobile app settings, and the portal setup. Now, this one is actually in the advanced setup option. So this one is a little bit tricky. So you're more than welcome to give us a call or send us an email. We can just enable it for you. But if we go to advanced setup, and I do believe this will hide in daily staff notes. Okay, and you just enable it. Pretty easy stuff. You can also receive an email if you choose. Otherwise, whether it's through the time kiosk or through the mobile app, those notes will actually show up on the timesheet itself. So on the day that staff member clocks in and clocks out, you'll see a teeny tiny little clipboard notification. So let me see if I can actually show you at least how that will work on the mobile app. Okay, so we're just going to hit cancel because that's already enabled. So what I'm going to do, actually, we can use our little demo for our mobile app, which I've moved on my other screen. So let's have a look. So when you're clocking in, for those clocking in and clocking out from the mobile phone, you've got clock in, clock out. If we have enabled it on the mobile phone, you can see it's got this option to leave clock notes. Okay, so that's where we can go rocked up late because reasons. Okay, and we'll submit that through. So yeah, department, we don't need allowances. We'll just go webinar training, and we can go clock in. Now you can see I've actually blocked the location settings and it's gone, no, can't do it. Can't do it. You've got to have it switched on. So I'll do that again. This is the wonderful thing about the mobile clocking is that you know exactly where they are when they say they are. So we go webinar and I'm going to, it's disabled it completely. That's not very helpful, is it? Location services, always allow. Let's try that. Third time lucky. Webinar, clock in. Okay, clocked in successfully, and we could do the same on clock out as well. Okay, so if we give that a moment, let's pop into Wageloch. Let's have a look at our timesheets. Hello, internet. I think everything has just decided to stop working for me. There we go. Alrighty, so let us submit this timesheet. This is an old one. Just going to roll this over. The other good thing about these notes as well is that they are reportable, so you can actually pull up notes from previous pay periods if you needed to as well. Honestly, that's probably one of my favorite things, just because if you go, oh, look, there was a bunch of notes in there, I completely forgot about them. You can go back and grab them. They're also available to be printed when you're doing the timesheet as well. So there's actually plenty of opportunities to obtain those notes and read them later after it happens. All right, so let's go into our current timesheet. Now, what is today? Today is the 15th. All right, so you can see a perfect example. So Amy, rostered to work today. Here's my clock in time. Okay, that one from my mobile phone app. And you can see this teeny tiny clipboard. Click on that. There's my note that I left. So they can leave little notes for you going, hey, mum, that sort of thing. Now, the same thing will work on the time kiosk, very, very similar as well. So theirs is a little bit different. So if you're using a fingerprint scanner, iris scanner, PIN code password, what happens is on the time kiosk, there is a tiny little button in the top right corner that says leave note. The staff member will tap on that. It'll ask them who they are, ask them to leave their note, and when they go to save it, they actually have to verify with their fingerprint, their PIN code, their password, whatever the clocking method is. It asks them to verify who they are with either their biometric data, PIN code, or password. Once they do that, same thing, we'd see a clock in and clock out time. in the system here as usual, but they can also leave notes without a clock time as well. And same thing, you'd see a little clipboard. It works very much the same way. So mobile app requires clock in and clock out to be able to leave notes, whereas working through the time kiosk just asks them to verify who they are. They don't have to clock in and clock out. All right, that is all for staff notes on clocking. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to pop those in chat. We are going to talk about the boot report next, which is pretty straightforward and simple. Will only take a couple of minutes. Okay, and just again, so for anyone who has arrived late, we have covered pretty much all of the criteria so far. So we have talked about onboarding, we've talked about shift swaps, roster shift confirmation, late clocking alerts, and we've just finished staff notes on clocking. So the last thing we'll be talking about will be the boot report. These videos will be available in the coming weeks, I should hope. We will let everyone know where they're uploaded and when they're available. Just going to take a quick step, and we won't be too long before we cover the boot report. Again, super, super easy and very straightforward stuff. All right, boot report, last but not least. Another fantastic tool. So one of the main reasons this report was implemented was mostly for if staff were changing employment type, so moving from casual to permanent or from permanent to casual, or base rate changes, anything like that. This would actually let you know if the staff was going to be better off. So the boot report, for those that don't know, is the better off overall test. Okay, lets you know, right, if I'm going to change their employment type, drop or increase their wages, depending on what sort of pay group they're moving to, are they going to be better off? Is it going to be worth it, and would they be happy with it? So in the reports section up the top here in Wageloch, under the HR reports category, we go into the boot report C016. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the screen. So we select a period. Now, the reason we need to select a period is to base this information on a previous pay period that has had hours in it. That is really, really important to make sure that we're getting correct and accurate data for what was paid, but then also what could have been paid as well if we had changed their pay group. So for example, we're going to use the last pay period here. We are going to select our employees. Okay, so I'm going to assume Amy Adams was in there. So at the moment, we can see Amy Adams is full-time. So current name and pay group, and current base rate is actually $30 an hour. So if we were going to drop them to a casual, or if we're going to drop them to part-time. Now, part-time, the rate would likely stay the same, but the hours could definitely be different. But with the casual, usually you'd have your 25% loading as well. So I'm going to say, well, she's a casual, but she's actually going to get above award rate. So maybe I'm just going to pop in, $35. Okay, keeping in mind that obviously moving from full-time and casual loses their entitlements. Okay, but you can pick multiple people at a time. Okay, pop in their base rates and what they're going to be moving to. If we click next, we give this a moment, providing they had timesheet data in the system. Okay, what this will do is it'll go, okay, well, based off of, let me just see if I can move this out a little bit more. Here we go. So what we can see is that for each staff member that I had selected, what this actually does is it goes, okay, here's what was actually paid during that pay cycle. So we can see total work for 7.75 hours. Total worked pay was $232.50. Okay, and we can see there's a slight difference there. So we can actually see there are some dollar figure differences here because we then have the casual rate. So full-time rate, $232.50, we can see that the variance change would be to $271.25. And we can see that we would have an increase of $38.75. for that work shift. So what this will do is, depending on their penalty rates, obviously, you know, if we're moving from casual to a permanent staff member, their rates will change as well for their penalties. If there's any overtime, annual leave, leave loading, that sort of thing. We can also see, if we have a look at heady knees down the bottom here, so we can see actually didn't get any worked hours. So slightly different. Okay, so we've got some total paid. Okay, and a lot of this was annual leave. Okay, so this is one of the main things you'll see is a lot of the leave differences. Okay, but this total worked variance and total paid variance will let you know the difference between what was actually worked and what was paid, and it will break down everything to give you the difference of costs. And then based off that, you can go, okay, well, if they're going to be getting X amount of money extra per pay period, but they're going to be losing their entitlements, but they're also going to be gaining back penalties where they didn't get those before, whatever the circumstances may be, it's going to give you a really good visibility of going, okay, are they going to be better off? And it's really great because you can actually export this and you can go, okay, maybe I want to select a period, but you can actually pick a date range of multiple pay periods if you wanted to. So you could go, all right, 31st of October until the 11th of December. I could pop that in my date range up the top here, and it'll actually show me for Amy, for each pay period where her hours would vary, what the difference would actually be. Okay. And you can export this as well. You can export this report as a spreadsheet, and you can present that as, you know, if you want to sit down with the employee, go, hey, look, we've considered your, you know, considered your change of employment, and have that discussion and go, look, this is the data, and, you know, are you happy with that? So it gives you the option and that visibility to see what the change would be, and also see if it's cost effective for the business as well. But that is the boot report, and that is also everything for today. So we've covered everything that was in the agenda. So onboarding, staff notes, late clock notifications, shift swaps, roster shift confirmation, and the boot report. So at this stage, in a moment, we'll give everyone a moment to leave any questions in chat, and we'll be covering those off over the next few minutes.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Sienna. That was a very informative training session. So I appreciate your time with that. We do have a few questions in the chat box here. So I'll go through and read them out if you like, Sienna, and then I'll get you to
Sure thing, go right ahead.
Lovely. So we had one here from Kelly. It was mainly about just sometimes there is a demand for a physical TFN declaration form. I was just wondering whether or not it can be made that the staff can be required to upload the documents during onboarding.
I do believe from recollection that is something that will be available in the HR module that'll be being released in the new year. I believe that is something that we've had or we've received quite a bit of feedback on, is the ability to upload documents. So I do believe that will be in the full HR add-on, but not so much in this onboarding feature.
Yeah, and just on that, we've sent an email out to some of our beta testers for the new HR module, and we are starting to look at the document storage right now, and then in the new year, we'll then add on sort of contract management and policies as well. So that would be an additional extra. So there's another question here from Andrew. Can we use this function if we're using Guild Payroll? Currently, they upload all info for us from a paper form.
That is a fine question. I may need to confirm that for you, Andrew. I do believe that the Guild have a very specific onboarding process that they do use. So I'm happy to get in touch with them for you and let you know.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one, Andrew. Good question. There's one here from Linda as well. So will there be an option to attach employment contracts and company policies for employees to sign, acknowledge?
Yep, same thing as the TFN declaration forms that Kelly mentioned as well. That will be in the full HR module, not so much for the basic onboarding.
Yeah, watch this space, Linda.
Yeah, watch this space.
Well, one from Ruth was just around the webinar. We had one on the 6th as well, which is the same topic. So we ran it over a couple of weeks, 2 different sessions. In case someone couldn't make one, I've got the other one there. So one from Andrea, is there an option to choose departments that can swap, so not instead of all staff?
So that is a really good question. I do believe that if the manager or the administrator in the mobile app has responsibility for a single team, I do believe they would only see the staff for their team. That is my understanding. I may have to confirm that for you as well, Andrea, just to ensure that that is correct. Otherwise, obviously, if you're just trying to swap shifts for one specific person in one team and you're seeing the entire staff list, it's going to make life a little bit difficult. So I will run some testing and I will confirm that for you.
Lovely. And then one here from Vicky. She's just said, so the comparison rate should be the base plus casual loading. So
yes, absolutely correct. So I do know that in some cases, depending on how the award is configured in our system, is that it may add the 25% loading on top. That may be something you may wish to check with us before using that report formally. More often than not, I do believe there would be a base rate change regardless, but you could actually check both ways if you wanted to. You could try one with the same base rate, just as the casual pay group instead, see if there's any variances. And if there is, you know that it has the 25% loading in there.
Excellent. And then Fina has asked, does an email have to be sent for clock notes or can that be turned off?
Oh, that one's actually, I think, come direct to you.
Yes, it has.
Sorry,
I'll ask it out loud because it's a good one for everyone else.
Sorry, could you repeat that one again, Kirili?
Yeah, does an email have to be sent for clock notes or can that be turned off?
No, that can be turned off. Yeah, so the option for staff leave and clock notes, you absolutely do not need to have an email in there to receive a notification that someone has left a note for you. That is optional. You can turn it on and those notes will just be visible for you to read in the timesheet as you're finalising the days.
Great. And then Kelly has a question here. In the new HR function, will that have an immunisation and allergy register?
That is a fine question. If it doesn't, we'll ask. We can certainly ask.
I'm not too sure about that. I will need to get back to you on that one, Kelly.
Yeah, I feel like that could actually be something quite useful. So yeah, we'll have a chat to our development team and see what they're going to be putting in there.
Yes, yep, lovely. And I believe that's all the questions. If no one has anything else, then I guess we will wrap it up. So look, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you got a lot out of it. If there are any additional questions you think about afterwards, then feel free to contact our help desk at helpdesk@wageloch.com.au, or you can call us direct on 08 7123 2993. Also, if we are planning future webinars, we'd be really interested to hear if you've got any suggestions, anything that you want to add. If you wanted to send an email through to help desk about that as well, we'd love to hear your ideas there. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. And thanks, Sienna.
Not a problem. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Lovely. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.